amazing webinar today on becoming a master prospector. My name is Rachel Escobedo. I am the online ambassador for Sanford programs, and joining me today is Pearl Hoagland. She is our program manager for the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy.
Hi, everyone. We just want to give a quick shout out to a few of our university partners tuning in today. We have National Leadership Institute in Florida, Maricopa Community College District in Arizona, Howard University in Washington, D.C., and City University of Seattle.
Thanks, Pearl.
And this is our mission statement, which really just demonstrates our commitment to strengthening the nonprofit sector, both here in San Diego and nationally through our university partnerships.
If you're joining us today and you're on social media, please give us a quick shout out by hashtagging SIP webinar. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get into our speaker today. So our speaker is Tony Bell. As you can see right there, Tony, give us a wave. All right, so I'm going to read to you a little bit about Tony. So in 2010, Tony Bell realized a mission and launched Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy, where he serves as the president and CEO. He is focused on social change through the global development of nonprofit and social enterprises, utilizing skills acquired from decades of organizational leadership experience. His portfolio of clients include American Foundation for AIDS Research, Susan G. Komen, Science Olympiad, the Better Business Bureau of South Florida and the Caribbean, YMCA, and the Palm Beach Special Needs Advisory Coalition. Tony resides in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he also serves as a president for the Center of Strategic Philanthropy and Civic Engagement, and as instructor for SIP affiliate for the National Leadership Institute. This year, in 2018, Tony celebrates 20 years of service to the nonprofit sector. Welcome, Tony.
Great, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here and to partner with the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy and bring our community some great educational opportunities. So we'll go ahead and get moving. It's always really interesting to know who's participating on the webinars and the varying degrees of either years in the industry or what your professional title may be with your organization. So we're going to take a quick poll right now. We'd love for you to answer, and whether you're a board member, executive director, development professional, volunteer, or other. And if it's other, please submit that via the chat feature. And the poll will launch on your screen in just a few minutes or seconds.
All right, the poll should be launched on your screen, so please go ahead and select your choices, and we will review the results shortly.
And while you guys are doing that, definitely a huge shout out to all of my friends in South Florida, and especially my colleagues at the National Leadership Institute. They do a lot of great work, as many of you do, bringing Sanford Institute programming to our local community. So a big hello to my friends at National Leadership Institute.
I also want to remind our audience, if you are selecting other, please go ahead and submit your titles via our chat box so we know what role you actually are. All right, we're going to give everybody about 20 more seconds to fill in their response.
Excellent. The anticipation.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the results. All right. So as you can see, we have 66% of you are development professionals. In second place, we have executive directors. And it looks like in third, we have board members, some volunteers, and other. I'm going to read some of your titles for those of you who selected other. We have program coordinator, program director. We have AmeriCorps, Vista, grant writer, and fundraiser.
Okay.
Let's see, marketing coordinator. We'll read one more. Associate Vice Chancellor of Pepperdine University.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great mix.
It is, it is. Thank you so much for your participation, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And I'm particularly excited, not to minimize, of course, everyone's participation, but I love it when board members participate in these types of opportunities to learn more about what's going on in the nonprofit sector. So thank you, board members, for taking time to participate in today's webinar. Okay, to move on. Excellent. So the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy introduces us to the cause selling cycle, which is all about relationships and all about a process. So if some of you have participated in Sanford Institute training before, this image may be very familiar to you. I lovingly refer to it as the cause selling donut. Representing the 8 steps of the cause selling cycle. So you'll see this image throughout the webinar today because we really want to drive home that today's session is all about a much larger process. The other thing that I wanted to say about the cause selling cycle is as you see other opportunities to learn about the cause selling cycle, you do not have to have participated or learned about step 1, 2, or 3 to get something relevant out of step 7. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, that with the 8 different steps, each one of them as a standalone module is very important, and you can learn a lot from them. So again, the cause selling cycle and the 8 cause selling steps. So today, of course, we're going to focus primarily on step number 1, which is prospecting. The cause relationship selling model really challenges us to think differently about the way that we invest our time in fundraising. So if you look at this particular model, and again, those of you that have participated in SIP programming before may have seen this, but I think it's really compelling and is worth sharing once again, that if you look at the traditional model of asking versus the relationship model of asking, you'll see quite a bit of a difference in how we may have traditionally invested our time in securing donations for our organizations. So you can see here with the traditional model of asking, we really only spent 10% of our time on the approach, 20% identifying needs, 30% making the presentation, and then 40% saying, please, will you please make a donation to my cause? Whereas the cause selling relationship model of asking kind of flips that around, right? So that we're spending the bulk of our time really looking at who are the right people for us to approach. And spending 40% of our time there, then 30% identifying needs, 20% making the presentation if you have to make one at all, and then 10% of your time really making the ask and securing that positive response that you're looking for. And why is there such a difference in that? Because we've invested so much of our time up front in making sure that the individuals that we're meeting with, having conversations with, and getting excited about our missions are the right folks. So when we go in and make that ask, it's a lot easier. And you're more likely to get positive results using the relationship model of asking versus the traditional model of asking. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can tell you that historically, I too always used this more traditional model of asking. As I got wiser and re-looked at the way that I raised funds for the organizations that I supported, I definitely moved more into this relationship model of asking. I can tell you from my experience, it is definitely less stressful than the more traditional model of asking, where again, you're spending 40% of your time really just kind of begging them to make a donation, and in some cases, really begging to the folks that either don't have the capacity to give or or aren't very interested in giving to your particular mission. So again, just wanted to share this with you. I think it's really compelling and makes a lot of sense when you implement it. Relationships, like we said, it's all about relationships. It's all about a process. Relationships, your smile is your logo, your personality, your business card. The way you make other people feel is your ultimate trademark. So we are very much in a relationship business. I know in my local community, when I served as CEO of a nonprofit and in development, those are positions where you are on from the minute you get out of bed until the minute you put your head back on the pillow. We are always on. We have to have a certain air of optimism all of the time and remain approachable. It's just part of the responsibility that we accept when we serve in roles with nonprofits and choose to support them. So again, just your smile is your logo. The way you make people feel is your trademark. So just good food for thought there. So we're going to right now launch into some donor relationship builders. Then we're going to talk about some donor relationship busters. We'll go into also looking at the different generations and what their history of giving is and what kind of makes them excited about giving. And then we'll launch into the 10 techniques that will make you a master prospector. So for donor relationship builders, treat donors like lifelong partners, right? We want to engage with folks that are going to be in this for the long haul. We don't want to reach out to folks and only be interested in a one-time gift. So really developing these relationships and knowing that they're going to be lifelong partners in your mission is very, very important. Linking your cause to the donor's passions. So that may seem obvious, but again, in the more traditional type of fundraising process that we may have used, when we got to that point when we were making the ask, we may not have really understood what their passions are. So really understanding what a donor's passions are and linking them to an appropriate cause. Becoming a solutions provider. This is really important, right? In today's environment, we really want to be able to demonstrate how we're making a difference in our community. And we want donors to know how they are part of being solution providers in their own communities through the support that they give to our organizations. Then schedule regular calls to build the relationship. So, I'm going to make an assumption, maybe we can use this for a poll the next time, but many of us are philanthropists in our own right at varying levels of giving, right? So we give to organizations that we're passionate about. And we certainly don't like to hear from those organizations only when they need money. So scheduling regular calls to build relationships with donors is of course very important. And I really stress the fact of picking up the phone so that you are ahead of all of the email noise that is in all of our inboxes these days. So pick up the phone. If they don't answer, just leave a short but sweet message, just kind of giving them an update on the organization or just letting them know that you were thinking about them. But definitely take the time to pick up the phone. Develop open and honest communication. Again, nonprofits, we really need to run our organizations with a high level of transparency and integrity. So just making sure that donors, volunteers, anyone involved in our organization feels very comfortable in reaching out to us with any question or concern that they may have. And then we need to respond to them in the same way, in a very open and honest manner. Using the we can approach is also very important with donor relationship building, showing that a team approach is really one of the best ways to create change and solutions for our communities. So letting them know that together we're making this happen. So this is a good one for me. Takes responsibility for any mistakes made. I certainly have made plenty of mistakes. I kind of like to say my road to success has been paved with mistakes, but really just kind of owning up to it. You can earn a lot of credibility from donors, stakeholders, board members, just by owning up to your mistakes. And again, that ties back into just having open and honest communication with folks. And then being an enthusiastic ally for your donors. These are all just really great examples, and there's probably 20 more I could share with you, but these are just good kind of basic relationship builders to keep in mind. And in fact, this goes across the board, so whether it's donors, volunteers, board members, these are all great things to consider when managing and building those relationships. So conversely, right, we've talked about building, but now we've got donor relationship busters. And these are the things that we hope that you don't do in trying to manage your relationships. So one of those would be focusing only on getting the donation. People can sense when all you're interested in is money. So you definitely don't want to have that desperate look in your eye, like, oh my gosh, we need your money so bad. So you want to make sure that in your communication, in your presentations, you're not just focusing on getting the donation. Don't take donor hesitation personally. For those of you that may be new to fundraising, new to the nonprofit sector, when I first jumped into this arena 20 years ago, this was one of the hardest things for me to accept. It probably took me a good 2 years to start realizing that donor hesitation was not a result of, my hair color or the suit and tie that I wore that day. It just may not have been the right time, or again, I wasn't as savvy as I hopefully am now, and use that more traditional model, and I may have gotten a lot of hesitation because some of those folks just weren't weren't the right people to ask. Don't wait for donors to call you. Again, no one wants to hear from you only when you need money. So schedule times to reach out and just have various touch points with your donors. Lie or make exaggerated claims about your cause. That's not doing you any good. It's not doing your organization any good. Again, integrity, transparency. We definitely don't want to be out there just creating fake news about our organizations. Overpromise and underdeliver. This one I kind of put into that category of, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So make sure that you're realistic in what you're offering donors. Make sure you're being realistic and identifying to them what the outcomes are of the programs and services that you're providing. But just, making sure that, again, you're not overpromising and underdelivering to your donors. Focus on your own personal gain. Again, that kind of ties in, I think, with focus only on getting the donation. You don't want to be in front of a donor and again have that desperation. I have to, I've got goals I need to meet. If I don't get your donation this quarter, then when I have my performance appraisal next week, I'm not going to meet expectations. So it's not about your own personal gain. And that also ties in a lot with just the core values of Association of Fundraising Professionals and not fundraising and being compensated based on commissions for the funds that you've raised. So we definitely don't want to be in there and focusing on our own personal gain. And this one drives me nuts because I've seen it happen, belittling other nonprofits that serve the same community, that might have similar missions. We're all out there trying to do great work and really change the world. And we really need to be supporters of one another and not be belittling other nonprofits. So it may seem like something that doesn't need to be said, but I've seen it happening and it's just not pretty. So that's definitely an easy way to bust a relationship. And the us versus them approach, nothing that you talk about should be us versus them. It really should all be about a collective impact and collaboration and how we are all together working towards your organization's mission, your organization's outcomes, and helping your organization be the best it can possibly be for the communities that you're serving. So again, all of your communication should be about us and not them versus us. So I hope that you found those useful and that you can certainly implement more of the relationship builders than you do implementing the relationship busters. So again, I hope that was great information. Again, just to remind you, this is all part of the cause selling cycle. Here, once again, is our fabulous donut. And that again today we're really focusing on phase one and step one of phase one prospecting. Also, if you have questions throughout, I mean, if we were doing this live, I would tell you my only house rule is that you interrupt me constantly. So please make sure in the chat that you're posting any questions that you have. We'll be monitoring those. If there's something that pops up, we'll jump in and answer it right away. Otherwise, there's definitely going to be time at the end of the presentation for some Q&A. This, I think, is really interesting, right? I mean, we're talking about prospecting. It's really interesting to get a good understanding of the different generations and what motivates them and what makes them passionate about giving. And so classy.org definitely provides some dynamite infographics on this. And I love sharing these because I think that they have so much great information. And again, you'll be able to come back and look at all of these slides if I should be, going through them a little too quickly for you, and capture some of this information and share it with coworkers, share it with board members, because I think it's just so great. So we have the matures, right, also known as the greatest generation. These are individuals that were born 1945 and earlier. So they currently represent about 26% of total giving, have a 24% volunteer rate, 11% donate to human rights causes. And I love, again, at the bottom of this particular graphic, they are top supporters of emergency relief, troops and veterans, the arts, advocacy, and election campaigns. So this is just a great example as you are prospecting and move into your pre-approach, which we'll talk a little bit about. This is good information to have as you reach out to these individuals that are in this category. Next, we have the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. They currently represent 43% of total giving, have a 25.7% volunteer rate. 49% want to know about the nonprofit's finances before they donate. That's not a big surprise. We hear a lot about that. Donors want to know how much of our funds are being utilized for administrative costs. We as a sector have a huge opportunity to educate the general public as it relates to administrative costs. So that they're really looked at as administrative investments. We certainly need individuals that have a certain level of talent and expertise to affect the kind of change that we're looking for in our communities. But I think I might be rambling, and that's a whole different webinar. But anyway, this particular group, baby boomers, are very interested in that type of information. And they're top supporters of first responder organizations, and 8% donate to human rights causes. Next, we have Generation X. So these are individuals born from 1965 to 1976. This is interesting. We'll go to millennials in a second, but it says here, Generation X plus millennials will inherit over $40 trillion. So think about that opportunity. Generation X represents 20% of total giving right now, 28.9% volunteer rate. Top supporters of health services, animal rights and welfare, I don't think that that's a big surprise. And environmental protection, I don't think that that's a big surprise either. But that's where Generation X is falling amongst our different generations. Here we have millennials, born 1977 to 1995. 11% of total giving, 21.9% volunteer. Pardon me, 84% of millennial employees donated to a nonprofit in 2014. They are top supporters of human rights and international development, child development, and victims of crime and abuse. So those are the three top areas that millennials are investing in when it comes to philanthropy. Generation Z, so born 1996 and later, also known as Philanthro Kids. I certainly love that expression. We have seen, unfortunately, here in South Florida, in our own backyard, with the Parkland massacre, what these kids are capable of. Definitely those students are great examples of philanthro kids. By 2020, they'll make up 40% of all customers. 26% of those aged 16 to 19 volunteer. 30% have already donated to an organization, and just over 1 in 10 want to start a charity. And certainly those that are starting businesses definitely are doing so with some type of corporate social responsibility embedded in their business plans. So it's been really exciting to see Generation Z and Millennials, as they step out and create their space, how they're including philanthropy and giving as part of that. And again, probably not a big surprise to any of you, but predicted to prefer mobile apps for giving. This is always very, this is pretty cool too, Zennials. So a Zennial is a micro generation born during the cusp years of Gen Xers and Millennials. Between 1977 and 1983, also known as when the Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy was released. Zennials experienced an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. They possess both Generation X cynicism and millennial optimism and drive. So I thought it was really, that's just really great information for us to have. When we've done this presentation in the past, folks had asked, okay, so now that we've defined those generations and we know just a little more about them, what is their current population? And so we have this particular graph. It's from 2015, but it does show you, by generation, the population. So it gives you just, again, just some additional information as you're prospecting and as you're doing your pre-approach work.
Hey, Tony, we have a quick question as it relates to what you just talked about. Someone asked why education wasn't represented in any of the generational giving.
It must not have been. Classy did the actual gathering of the data, but it must not have appeared in any of the top 3. That's a total assumption on my part. But we certainly know that folks are very passionate and committed to their universities. So I'm sure if it wasn't there, it was somewhere very close.
Thank you.
Sure, I hope that's not a real direct answer, but that my expectation is that it must not have fallen very high on those on whatever mechanisms they may have used to gather that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. We do have more questions, but they can wait till the end.
Oh, okay, super. We'll jump in whenever. So again, here's the donuts. So the call selling cycle, phase 1, prospecting and pre-approach, and now we're going to launch into prospecting. So prospecting, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant. Folks, there's a reason why this is called development. There are no turnkey solutions. There is no one size fits all. It is development, and that's why it's really important that, again, you don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant. And just kind of keeping that in mind as you move forward and as you may be creating some stress for yourself in terms of meeting some of your goals. So now we're going to launch into the 10 methods of prospecting. These are just various techniques that you consider implementing as part of your prospecting. Again, prospecting is all about creating that list of potential donors for your organization. And these are just different ways that you can find individuals to put on that prospecting list. The other thing that I'll say before we launch into this is it's pretty donor specific, related to individual donors, but also think about this as it relates to corporations and foundations. You would utilize many of these same strategies in trying to prospect the right corporations and the right foundations to support your nonprofit. So number 1 would be referrals. Number 2, circles of influence, spheres of influence, event prospecting, direct email and mail, social media, warm calling, networking, organization-initiated prospecting, websites, and crowdfunding. So those are the 10 specific ones that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper one by one. So of course, the natural one for prospecting is referrals. Have person make the initial contact for you. So a lot of times, just through conversations, you're at a networking event, you're talking to a board member after a board meeting, you're having a conversation, you're talking about what some of the needs are for your organization, and someone that you're talking to says, hey, I know somebody that can help meet that need. Let me offer you that referral. I'm sure many of us are doing that now, right? Email referrals. I sent 2 of them out this morning. Introducing folks to one another in hopes that there's some type of mutually beneficial relationship that can be developed. And in this scenario, hopefully develop for the betterment of our community. So again, whenever possible, have that person make the initial contact for you when you're looking at referrals to create prospects. Don't be afraid to ask for referrals. Don't be afraid to ask existing donors for referrals. Don't be afraid to ask stakeholders, board members, volunteers for referrals. Again, what we're doing right now is just creating our prospecting list of individuals, corporations, or foundations that may be a good fit for our organization. So ask away. So what to ask? So if you're asking for referrals and someone offers you some, then again, make sure that you're communicating with that person about how you're going to reach out to the referrals that are being offered. When to ask, make asking a regular part of your fundraising cycle. So consistently, as you build relationships, as you meet folks, ask them for referrals. The one thing that I'll say about referrals and email introductions is be prepared. When folks do an email referral, the expectation is going to be that you're going to respond to that referral quickly because it's a really warm referral for you. So you need to make sure you have the bandwidth to do that. And the reason why I'm kind of chuckling inside about this is I recently had this experience of where I have a new strategic partner who is offering me some referrals to organizations that might benefit from the work that I do. And of course, I'm very excited about that. I'm very passionate about the work that I do and the nonprofit sector. But what I forgot to mention to her was that to make sure that I only was sent so many referrals at a time. So we had a great meeting. We signed our partnership agreement. And then once the partnership agreement was signed, the next day I had 15 referral emails from my strategic partner. So all of a sudden, in the midst of an already pretty busy week, I had to make sure I promptly responded to those emails because again, they're warm leads, and you don't want those folks just kind of sitting out there. So keep that in mind when you're talking to folks and you're talking about referrals, that referrals are being given to you in a manageable pace. Because you want to be able to reach out to them in a timely manner. Why people don't give referrals, you know, there are going to be times where you might ask for a referral. You might see that you have mutual connections via LinkedIn, so you reach out to someone and ask for them for the referral. They may not say no, or they may say no, just because they're not comfortable in kind of handing over the relationship. So don't stress about that. Just know that there are different reasons why folks may not want to give you a referral, and a lot of times it's just that they don't trust handing over that relationship. Next, in terms of our techniques, we have, you know, utilizing circle of influence or your sphere of influence. When you're tapping into a circle of influence or someone that has a large circle of influence, you're tapping into someone who believes in you and your cause. So of course, that's very important to get those types of folks on your prospecting list. It's influential with a significant number of people. So again, your prospect list will include folks that have a circle of influence that has a significant amount of influential people on it. A willingness to give you names on a regular basis. So again, finding those individuals that are willing to sit down with you once a quarter, once every year, and talk about folks in their network that may be good, a good referral for you within their circle of influence. And the names given to you are at least partially qualified prospects. So again, that's what's really great about circle of influence and tapping into that as you're creating your prospecting list, is these are folks that are already partially qualified individuals. Event prospecting, I think we have a huge opportunity here. When I did development work and was overseeing events, I always felt like, you know, we were missing the boat and leaving some money on the table because I really didn't feel like we did a really great job at event prospecting. So here, you know, the real power of the event often lies in follow-up with attendees. I would often reach out to my board members just a couple of days before an event and share with them the names of 2 or 3 guests attending the event and what table number they would be sitting at. And those board members would then be empowered and charged with going over to those folks, introducing themselves, and really just thanking them for being there. Then after the event, board members would be responsible for following up with those same 3 or 4 individuals just to find out how their experience was and if they could answer any more questions about the organization. So these are again, great ways to utilize your events for additional prospecting and getting these folks on your prospecting list. And make sure to capture contact information of the attendees. I know, you know, a lot of times we have the information for the person that buys the 10 top, but we may not have contact information for all of their guests. The same thing when we talk about golf tournaments, we may have the contact information for who bought the foursome, but not information on, you know, the other players. So finding ways to capture that information for those attendees so that then they can end up on your prospecting list as well. So again, I think we've got lots of great opportunities in terms of event prospecting with all of our organizations. So direct email and direct mail for your prospecting. Prospects will read well-targeted direct mail. I think part of the value, again, of us understanding the different generations is that, you know, it isn't one size fits all. So we have to be very specific and direct in our messaging and our images for our direct mail pieces. But certainly the direct mail has value. Again, as we're inundated with emails, I know, just again, talking from my own personal experience, I really look at everything that comes in my mailbox now because it's not saturated. Whereas my inbox, it's pretty easy to either purposely skip something or to genuinely mistakenly skip something just because it falls into just you know, an abundance of other communication that comes through throughout the course of a day. Social media is also a great prospecting tool. It's not just about, you know, solely the likes or the followers, but who is you know, consistently engaged in your postings. If you monitor that and take a look at it, you'll find folks that you'll want to put on your prospecting list. Offer followers real content and regular calls to action. You know, when you're posting on your social media, and again, some of this might be redundant for some of those of you that are a little more seasoned in this arena, but if you're just stepping into social media, it can't be all about the ask and what you need. Make sure you're sharing information just about information related to your mission. So if it's health related, maybe there's great new information on, you know, different services that are being provided by other organizations. Maybe there's new therapies that have been introduced in the marketplace that'll be of value to folks that are following you. So again, putting out information that just isn't about give us money, or this is what we need, but sharing real content that's related to your mission. Quick story about that. When I was working for a national nonprofit and managing our social media, there was one particular individual who would consistently like posts and then would often share them. Didn't really comment a lot, but was pretty consistent in liking, and I would say pretty consistent in sharing some of our posts. So I did a little detective work, which would be the pre-approach, the next step in prospecting. So this individual I knew was good for my prospect list. I did some additional research on them, and that was through LinkedIn, and saw that they were the president and CEO of a small marketing and PR firm. Well, I just happened to need some PR and marketing support because I needed a new press release template. I had some questions about some things that we were doing, and really just could have used the help of someone in that profession. So because they had liked and shared our posts so much, I reached out to them, started a conversation, shared what our needs were, and then next thing I knew, I had pro bono PR and marketing services for the organization. So we certainly know the value of that and how that equates to hard dollars for our organization, right? Because that was unrestricted funding that I did not have to spend on PR and marketing because I was able to find somebody to offer that pro bono. So that's just a small example of how social media can help you in prospecting, and then ultimately getting a service or dollars that you need. Excuse me, let's see here. So another method of prospecting is warm calling. Use as a supplement, never your primary source of prospecting. Find a way to make a connection before the call. Maybe you've connected with them via LinkedIn, and now you're just going to make a quick call to them, introducing yourself further, thanking them for the LinkedIn connection. This is not about digging too deep, but really just about getting enough information from them to find out whether it makes sense for you to even put them on your prospecting list. Plan for the call, of course, much like you would often do in many things, presentations and such, but plan for the call, anticipate certain questions, and then remain enthusiastic, right? It's all about how you're going to make that person feel and how they're going to feel once they hang up the phone. So definitely encourage you to remain enthusiastic throughout the phone call. Networking, again, a great method of prospecting and creating individuals or finding individuals that could be on your prospect list. The 3 C's of networking: connecting, communicating, cooperating. So considering those as you're out there networking. Sharing information makes good sense, right? That's what networking is all about. It's about connecting folks. There's nothing selfish about networking, or at least there shouldn't be anything selfish about networking. It really is kind of an opportunity for everyone to support everyone else. Join groups, and don't forget to share your business card, right? But that does not mean that you go to a networking event with 500 business cards and you pass out all 500 of them. Again, what are you going to do if all 500 people respond to you within 48 hours? Just not possible in most environments. So be strategic about who you're handing your cards out to. I'm at a point now where I go to networking events with really only 5 or 6 cards. I hand them out very strategically. Plus, I also know that 5 or 6, again, should I hit a home run and they all respond, 5 or 6 are probably the maximum that I could respond to in an effective and timely manner. So I try and limit that. So, bring business cards, join groups. I know in our community, a lot of the chambers have launched nonprofit chamber groups. So they're really great resources and a great way to connect your nonprofit with the for-profits that are part of those chambers. So I highly encourage you, if you aren't already, to take a look at how your local chamber of commerce might be able to offer you great groups that you can be a part of to increase your networking. Let's see here, we're getting pretty close to wrapping up some of these, but methods of prospecting, organization initiated and websites. So some organizations do telemarketing, and so you have a lot of information from past donors or potential donors that can end up on a prospecting list. Event attendees, single ticket attendees, again, are great prospects for fundraising. LYBUNTS, right? Last year, but unfortunately not this year, and some year, but unfortunately not this year. I can tell you in all the times that I've done this workshop, it's the first time I've got those acronyms correct. But basically, again, that's for the organizations that have a history of giving, that have databases that you can tap into and look at. So you can take a look at past donors that need to be re-engaged, or donors that consistently respond to solicitations but still have yet to give a donation. So those are folks that will probably want to end up on your prospecting list. Excuse me. Water. Websites. So your website, in terms of prospects, should have an easy way for folks to make donations. Everything that you do really should drive folks to your website. So all of your social media should ultimately drive folks to your website. Again, this is just ways to monitor traffic and to find individuals that consistently visit your page or respond to a call to action, so that they can end up on your prospecting list. Use affiliate programs for marketing. So many of you are probably associated with other nonprofits in your organization. So as you're offering programs and services, you have those partnerships to cross promote what's happening. So make sure that those affiliates are marketing your programs and have links to your website. So again, driving folks and traffic to your websites. And video is king right now. I think that's part of the reason why we're doing this with my face, so that you really can connect more personally with individuals. So short vignettes, short videos that show the folks that are benefiting from your programs and services, that show potential donors and stakeholders what you're doing, and really kind of shows them what happens behind the curtains, can be very, very impactful. And then crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is something that's very popular right now. Again, it can create opportunities for you as you're developing your prospecting list. It's a great way to initiate an online fundraising campaign. They're typically very specific projects for crowdfunding. When they're launched. So it's either to support a very specific program, it's to build a playground, all of those types of very specific tangible projects or campaigns are usually what crowdfunding is being used for. But it does, as you monitor those, and you may not be the one who has created it, right? I mean, we see lots of volunteers that just start a crowdfunding page or some type of peer-to-peer fundraising to support the organizations they're passionate about. So monitoring those and really looking at who are the top 5 or 10 donors within those crowdfunding initiatives that can end up on your prospecting list. And crowdfunding websites, just a reminder, cannot replace traditional fundraising efforts. They're a great, what I would consider a portal or entry point to your organization, but then us as development professionals need to really kind of determine how we're going to take that information and those potential prospects and take them to the next level. But crowdfunding definitely offers a great opportunity to find folks that would be good for your prospecting list. Because again, utilizing the call selling model, we're spending 40% of our time in prospecting and pre-approach. So this isn't something you're going to do today and then not do again for 6 months. It's something that's going to be a regular part of your daily, if not weekly, activities, creating this ongoing prospecting list of individuals that may be appropriate as supporters for your cause. So those are our 10 techniques to becoming a master prospector. So you've created these great lists. You've got, some good information on prospects. So now what are you going to do with it? Well, hopefully it's going somewhere other than just in a spreadsheet. There are tons of donor management systems out there, just lots of online tools available for you to manage and house this information. And the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy has a great webinar online. It's Digging for Donors webinar. So for those of you that already have a database in place, this is a great resource to help you kind of find new ways of digging into that database and creating new prospecting lists from some of the existing information that you may already have. I strongly encourage you, if you don't already have a CRM or some type of donor management system, there are tons of them in the marketplace at all kinds of different price points, but please invest in them. Not only is it just easier to manage the information than to trying to manage all of that on a spreadsheet, it's certainly a lot easier as we look at succession planning so that as you grow in your careers or as you move on to other organizations, or when you win the lottery and you make a big donation and you go buy your private island, all of that intellectual property is housed in some type of donor management system so that the next person coming in or the other folks on your team know when was the last time you talked to a donor, what that donor's favorite color is, what are their hobbies, all of that great information. So, once you've honed your prospecting skills and you've got all of that great information, make sure it's being housed somewhere that's sensible and accessible to others in your organization and to those who may step into your big shoes once you move on. So that's really the nuts and bolts about becoming, just the best prospector you can be. And step 2 of phase 1 of the call selling cycle is pre-approach. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about why pre-approach is so important. So, we've created this list of individuals for whatever reason, for whatever criteria you've determined, may be good donors, stakeholders for our organization. So again, this list may be individual donors, it may be foundations, it may be corporations, but we've developed this list. So now what? So now we move into the pre-approach phase, which is really all about now digging deeper and finding more information about these prospects. So what are they really passionate about? What is their level of giving with other organizations? How often do they give? So just really finding out some of those details about your prospects before you ever set up your first meeting with them. So that's why pre-approach is so important, right? So, we're finding the right prospects. So see enough people, see the right people, see them at the right time. A lot of times we don't have control over that, but we certainly know that timing is everything when it comes to reaching out to potential donors for our organizations. But who are the right people? So that's why the pre-approach part of phase 1 is so important. We can't just create a list of individuals, prospects, and then go all willy-nilly and start setting up meetings and making phone calls with individuals that we don't even know are really the perfect fit for our organization. So the pre-approach allows us to kind of fine-tune our list, prioritize our lists, so that the time that we're investing in recruiting donors and stakeholders for our organizations is really well spent and creating the kind of ROI that we're looking for. So that's pretty much it about the pre-approach. So one of my favorite parts now is the question and answer part of our presentation. I haven't looked at the time at all. Wow. So we do have time for some questions. So what do we have?
Thank you so much, Tony. Wow, you provided us an amazing presentation. And yes, we're going to jump right into questions.
Great.
So Tony, we actually have a ton of questions for you.
Oh, yay.
First question is more straightforward. Of the prospecting methods, were they ranked in order of effectiveness?
No, they were not ranked in order of effectiveness. And in fact, I think it's really important, and that's a great question. I think it's important that you look at each of these 10 techniques as 10 different tools for your tool belt, right? And you may be more successful at one of these than others. So I would say, utilize all 10 of them in various ways and find the one that you feel like you're the most comfortable with and is bringing you the most results.
Thank you. And now the next few questions are a little specific to networking and events. So
Okay,
the
good.
first question, to summarize, someone works for a nonprofit that isn't very well known in their community. So their strategy initially was to attend as many events as they could, but they didn't find that to be very fruitful. So now they're going to be more selective about the events they choose, and just wanted your take on that strategy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that was part of the challenge too, that I had when I initially joined like our local Chamber of Commerce. They probably have 20, 25 events a week. There was no way I could go to 20 or 25 events a week. So what I did was I met with Chamber staff. You probably have some liaison there, and that's using this as an example, right? But so I met with them and really helped, made sure they understood what my goals were in terms of my membership with the Chamber. And then they helped me identify the events that really made sense for me and what I wanted to achieve. The same kind of thing if you belong to a number of different organizations, or maybe it's just that, through Eventbrite, you're seeing 20 events throughout the week and you're like, how do I pick and choose? A lot of times with Eventbrite, I can see folks that are attending. If I know someone, I may reach out to them ahead of time, and ask them questions about those particular events to get their take on whether or not they think, it's going to give me the kind of return that I need for the time that I'm investing. But definitely, you need to be very specific about where you're investing your time because there's just so many great opportunities.
Thank you. And we actually have so many questions coming in, and they're really interesting and I think would be really valuable to the group. So we're just going to go over about 2 minutes so that we can answer these questions. So whoever wants to stay on, please do. It'll take about 2 minutes. I'll just jump right into the next question. It's actually 2 questions that that I'll ask in one. So again, event attendees and capturing information. The first question is, how to capture event attendees that are sitting at your sponsor table. And then the follow-up question from someone else is, what are some creative ways to get contact information from the rest of the group at an event?
Okay, super. So, one, the natural right is to ask whoever has sponsored the table. So I've had some success with that. Sometimes in registration, so more and more folks, of course, because the technology is so good, are registering for events online, and they're providing us with their guest list online. So sometimes I've made it a mandatory field to add either the place of employment or that person's email. You'll find that a lot of times they'll offer that. The host of the table will provide you with that information, during registration. I've done things where we've done a raffle at each individual table. So if you have your 10 top, everybody throw in a business card, and then the table lead or the host will pull one, and that person might win, something special. And then you're able to capture those cards. We make sure that we coordinate that process again with the table host so that those cards make their way to us. We typically do some type of ask at the event. So there are usually, and again, this isn't cutting edge recommendation, but there's usually a donation card at the table. So folks can make an additional donation, so you're capturing their information there. Or, some type of card that says, want to know more about us, want to be more involved, and they can just fill that out and check a box that says, I want to know more about volunteer opportunities, I want to know more about events, I want to know more about becoming a donor. So utilizing those opportunities. Also, after the fact, if you're posting your events on your event pictures on social media, making those public and encouraging folks to come in and tag themselves. So a lot of times an event host or a table host will tag the people that were at their table on photos that are post-event. So that's also a great way of getting the names of folks.
Great. Okay, next question is about warm calling, but really about cold calling. So this person works for a university, and they have a long list of alumni who are prospects but haven't really been engaged. So the first question is this considered cold calling? And if so, how can this person warm them up?
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider it cold calling because they're already an alumni, right? So they're already familiar with, with the university. There's already some connection. So I don't consider that a cold call just because there is a connection. There's so many different tactics that you could take when it comes to the warm calling. So, there's the, hi, we haven't heard from you for a while, or we noticed you haven't attended any events, in a while. We would love for you. One way that I have successfully gotten folks engaged is through surveys. So I might create a real quick survey that's not going to take folks more than a minute to complete. And that's for those folks, again, that I'm trying to get re-engaged. So I may call them and say, you notice you haven't participated in anything in a while. We're really taking a look at that and would love your feedback. So if you have time, please, complete this 1-minute survey. And that may have questions about, what types of events are you interested in attending? Are you only interested in events that last 1 hour? Are you only interested in events that happen in the morning or the evening? So that might be a way, folks always want to give their opinion is what I've come to learn. So if you can offer them an opportunity to give an opinion and then you respond to that opinion, that can be a way of re-engaging them.
Thank you. And I lied. We have another question, and I really want to allow us to answer. So this question is quick. It's just how to re-engage SciBunt donors.
How to re-engage silent donors?
SciBunt. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. SciBunt. SYBUNT.
Oh, some year. Oh, you're talking about the acronym?
Yes.
Yeah, some year, but not this year. That's a case by case. I wish I had a one size fits all answer for that one. It's just, just don't let them off the hook. I know that's not going to be the best answer, but eventually you're gonna hit some passion point with them because again they're consistently engaged in that they're taking the phone call. They're responding to an email or direct mail piece in some manner. So you might want to take that same strategy that I use with, with re-engaging donors, with these same ones that are kind of responsive but never kind of, sign at the dotted line. Do something that engages them to provide some type of opinion, and then see how you can segue that into a conversation that gets them passionate about a project that you have. And I would encourage you too, a lot of times we look at our mission, and so for an arts organization, right? So we're like, oh, we got to find people that love the arts, and they're the ones that should be funding our organization. But you may have a program that supports, pre-K or that supports kids in elementary school. So you may have a donor that may not really care about the arts as much as they care about pre-K and early learning, or care about kids in elementary school and their learning capacity, right? So then you talk about how arts enhances the learning capacity of kids in elementary school, and you tap into their passion that way. So it's not that the art's the reason why they're giving, but it's because of what the arts does for these kids, and the kids are what they're ultimately passionate about. and maybe re-examining and kind of, I don't necessarily want to say twisting because that almost has a negative connotation, but twisting your approach and your communication on that.
Thank you. We do have more questions, but I think I'm sorry that we don't have time to get to them. If you do have questions, definitely tweet. You'll see on the slide here, Sanford Institute, or on Facebook, Sanford Institute of Philanthropy. You can also tag Tony. On Twitter, it's at MR for Mr. Nonprofit. So definitely tweet. Oh, definitely tweet us your questions, and we'll try to answer those for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm happy to follow up the best that I can and answer questions. I'm glad that folks had so many questions. I mean, my hope when you take the time to invest in webinars like this, my hope is, one, that you have some amazing aha moment that you're like, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. I can't wait to go implement that and to share that with my peers. Or at least you walk away saying, all right, I'm doing all the right things. Because there's certainly nothing wrong with us getting that affirmation that we're doing all the right things. So, I hope that through your investment in time today, you're walking away with at least one of those two things happening.
Yes, thank you. And we just want to remind everyone that you will receive an email in the coming days with the slide deck and the recording so that you can watch it at any time. You can also view all of our past webinars on our YouTube page. And then lastly, don't miss our next webinar on Wednesday, July 18th. It's about a fulfilling career in philanthropy.
Thanks, Pearl, and thank you so much, Tony. And of course, a huge thank you to our audience who spent this hour plus with us today. We love your engagement, we love your questions, and we love making these webinars for you. One last reminder is that when this webinar closes, a very short survey is going to launch immediately, and we really appreciate your feedback. We really take into account all your feedback in order to make our future webinars even better. So
thank you for what you all do in the community too. I don't know that I said that, and I wanted to make sure you all know how appreciated your hard work is.
All right, awesome. And with that, with Tony's last words, we will close out the webinar and see you all next time. Take care.
Have a great day. Thank you.